So good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to the side event, Water Energy Food Nexus for Sustainable Development. I'm Junguo Liu from North China University of Water Resources and Electric Power. It's a great pleasure to invite you all to here. I would like to first give a brief introduction about this slide before I invite the speakers to come to the floor. So in fact, for the topic, Water Energy Food Nexus, these are the big issues. Agriculture accounts for about 70% of our water use worldwide, and the food production and its supply chain account for 30% of energy use, and energy production accounts for 15% of world water use, and the water withdrawal, distribution, and wastewater treatment account for 8% of the world energy use. So the water, energy, food, they are linked to each other closely, and also the implementation of water, energy, and food is very important for sustainable development. As climate change intensifies, changes such as uneven water distribution, fluctuating energy demand, and unstable agricultural production are becoming more prominent. So exploring profound impacts of climate change on the water, food, energy nexus is essential for achieving the long-term sustainability. So for our side event, we try to focus on the following topics. The first one is Earth observations and advanced technologies for water and energy efficiency. The second is the sustainable agricultural practices, conserving water and increasing food security. And the third one, try to find opportunities and challenges for reducing environmental footprints. And we try to share knowledge of water, energy, food nexus, and to promote actionable strategies and cross-sector partnership and advance the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So I'm also glad to introduce the speakers for this side event. The first speaker is Eddie Moss. He is the rector of IHE Delft Institute for Water Education from the Netherlands. So welcome, Eddie. And the second speaker is Toshia Kirker. He is the executive director from the International Center for Water Hazard and Risk Management Public Works Research Institute from Japan. So I'm really glad to invite both of them to give the talks. Maybe I will invite you a moment later. So I will be the third speaker for this side event. So we will organize the side event as follows. So first, I give this brief introduction for about 5 minutes, and then each of us, we three, we will give about 20 minutes presentations. And after that, we will have a discussion, and you can ask any questions we try to answer. We also would like to discuss the future collaborations. And at the final stage, we will have a signing ceremony. And Eddie and me, we will sign MOU on behalf of our two universities. One is the IHE Delft, and another is my university. So just before I close this short introduction, I also would like to mention we organize a special issue for Water Energy Food Nexus. If you are interested, you can certainly submit your papers to this special issue. So thank you very much for your attention. Now I would like to first invite the first speaker to give his presentation. Now, Eddie, now the floor is yours. So now let's welcome Eddie.
Thank you, Professor Liu. So my name is Eddie Morse. I'm rector of IHE Delft. As was said already, I'm rector of an institute that works on water. What we try to do actually as an institute is not only educate people, but we're working on capacity development in a broad sense. So not only creating capacity or education for individuals, but also working actually on creating capacity for institutions. And with institutions, what we mean, that can be with other universities, other institutes, but also with governments or departments of governments to work together on new policy development. Today, what I would like to say a few words about is about the Nexus, so the water, energy and food Nexus, although I would like often to add environment there as well, because I think sometimes it's a little bit forgotten, although often also implicitly in the other three, but I think it deserves special attention. And the reason that I would like to give this talk is also that I would like to connect it with the accelerator framework. And all of you that have been involved with UN Water or UN organizations, you know that this accelerator framework was introduced by the UN to push actually the Sustainable Development Goal number 6 especially. Also with the expression that if we don't push the water agenda in the Sustainable Development Goals, we have a lot of problems with the other SDGs as well. So it was and is very important to push that. So a lot of institutions are working on that. IHE Delft is one of the category 2 institutions of UNESCO. And UNESCO has the Intergovernmental Hydrology Program. At the moment, since a year, it's working on the 9th phase there. And we are especially active in say, the second topic there, which is on water education. China is actually the lead member state on water education in this program, but the Netherlands, and through the Netherlands, IHE Delft is the co-chair of this particular initiative, indicating how important we think that education is, but also not ignoring the other 4 that are also important in there. So the second part in there, and just for those who don't know the accelerator framework, here's just a picture what it is about. And in this framework you see SDG 6 in the middle, but the framework tells you something that you cannot do everything only with capacity development. What you need is actually a good collaboration between governance. You need innovations, you need data, you need finance, and you need also to have good governance in place. Otherwise, it will not work. IHE Delft is an institute. We're mainly working on the capacity development, as I said before. And here's just one example. Professor Liu already explained a little bit about what is there. This is an example from India, by the way. What you see is actually 2 different crops there. On the right-hand side, wheat, and on the left-hand side, you see rice. Why I wanted to show this picture is about the amount of energy that's being used in the production actually of rice. And one of the big things that is happening there is pumping. And why is that different between the 2? That has to do that both crops are grown in a different season. So one is more depending actually on rain, and the other one is more depending actually on irrigation water. Both of them, they need pumping, and what you see happening in India, but you see that also happening in other places, is that the increase actually in, say, finance that is required, but also in pumping that's needed is increasing. And that has to do with the fact that the groundwater table in a lot of places is lowering. And with the lowering of the groundwater table, you need more energy, and by that you also need more financing actually to make the same production. So I just wanted to show you this as one example on where you have this very strong link actually for the production of food between water and energy. And what I also wanted to show in this one is that there is a link that you can translate in economic value. So if you then start talking, for example, with a government or with an organization there, you can make a sort of estimation where you know if you make a certain choice that it will cost you a certain amount of money. So where do you want to put your cost price? And I think this is for agriculture in a very broad sense. I also had to talk with a representative of Shell, that's an oil company, not directly related to food, but they make the same actually decisions. And that is about how much money do they lose or do they have to invest in treating water? And what production do you want to make? So there are a lot of economic decisions that are taken in this link about water, food and energy. I also think that it's a very nice link to put on the table if you start talking about negotiations or if you start talking about where to put what sort of investments. So also for transboundary issues, I think it's an important one. And here I don't necessarily mean international transboundary issues, but I also mean actually administrative transboundary. So also between villages, between certain regions, you will have those discussions. Who's going to use how much water, what energy, and what food production do you get out of there? One other important part in there is that I think at the moment we are improving actually our data information. This is an example of work that we do together with the FAO, so the Food and Agriculture Organization, where we supply them with other partners with data. This data availability is becoming much and much better. So at the moment on a global level, the data are becoming available at 30-meter level. And I think that's quite interesting because that means that you can also have other informations and uses of that. This is an example of Africa, but it's going to be worldwide covered. If you're interested, please visit the site or go to FAO and you can find them because the data are openly available. This is what I also wanted to show as an example what you can do with that. And that is that because you get this data at a very high resolution, you can also see how much water is being used where. And you can also see from remote sensing what the biomass that's produced. And with the production of biomass, you often can make a good estimation of yield and by that of potential income. So what you can do in a case like this is you can see which farmer has a higher say efficiency than another farmer. And the idea behind it is that by doing that you can exchange information between farmers, how they can both increase their efficiency and by that have a better production in a certain area. But another application of that of course is by the water manager who knows how much water is needed where and can also make certain choices on how much water they can put there. And then you're entering also in the system where you probably require insurance because that will mean that you have to compensate the farmer if he gets less water, but that you want to invest it in a regional important area in other parts of the crop growth that takes place. So why should you not draw too easy conclusions from remote sensing? So that's a little bit of a warning. Is because there are a lot of reasons why there is a difference in efficiency. It's not always that the farmer is not producing in a good way, but it can have different causes. So I think the remote sensing is a very nice tool for a first, say, sort of alert, a flag that may go up, but then it has to be followed up actually with an in-field investigation on what is the reasoning and why is that happening and how can you improve on that. And that also here a couple of examples on what you can do. So those are potential measures that you can start to discuss with the farmers and with the region there, how you could improve maybe the water use efficiency in different ways. Also would like to stress the last one, which is becoming more and more important, is the use of recycled water. I think this morning there was just a prize for the journalist of the year. That was handed out actually to a journalist who did research on PFAS. PFAS is one of the rising contaminants actually in water. And I think in the use of recycled water, we have to learn more about where we can use it, under what conditions we can use it, what policies we need to put in place to make this possible. Because I do think it's a way that we have to develop in certain areas, but I think we also have to be a little bit aware about what risks are. What Professor Liu also said in his speech, and I would like to stress that with this graph here, this is from Uruguay. This just shows you actually that something is not stable in a year. So you have to be aware that throughout the years things may change. So that may also mean that you make different decisions. So you have to have a flexible tool in place to do this in a good way. This is again Uruguay, and it shows you the different years, the different colors actually tell you something about the difference between precipitation and evapotranspiration, and that means how much water is left or what shortage you have. And here is a clear sign about a drought situation happening in 2021 in Uruguay. Then you want to take certain measures, and I just put this one here because I do think it's sometimes a political decision that you make. And what I wanted to show you with this graph, this is about actually the frequency and the probability of an event taking place. And on the right-hand side you have your wet extremes, on the left-hand side you have your dry extremes. It can also be about temperature, and then you're talking about hot on the right-hand side and cold on the left-hand side. Often the extremes are not very good for your crop, so you want to stay out of it. The question is a little bit about when are you going to take what measures? When are you happy with maybe introducing an insurance system to overcome a certain, say, loss of crop? Or when do you want to start to invest actually in developing a new crop or a new variety of crop in that area? So those are decisions that require some time, because the introduction of that can easily take 5 to 10 years before you do that. So it's an important decision there. Now I'm going to make the link actually to the accelerator framework. I depicted the accelerator framework as a sort of propeller, pushing forward the ship. And for me, the ship is actually the energy, water and food nexus, because we need this energy and we need this food to come here. But how do you do that? Like I said already, I think you need all 5 components in there. But I also would like to say a few words about education and capacity development. One of them is that I do think that if you want to make a jump, if you really want to make a big step, and not just a linear step, but you want to make an exponential step, so a jump, then you have to start thinking about how you can do that. And often schooling is the best way. So having that in your schooling system one way or another is, I think, a very good investment to do. Another problem that I see rising is in the bottom graph over here is a little bit about the different generations that we're talking about. 2 important things there. One, the baby boomers are leaving the room. I myself also retiring not too far away from now. And what I see, and that is a little bit of my concern, that there are less young people interested to work in the water sector. And I think that's a problem, because I only see more water challenges coming, and I see less young people, say, working in that sector. Maybe also because we are not appealing to them in the right way. So that's something that I would like to invite you for. Start to think about appealing to the young sector. We introduced this Global Water Education Network in New York in 2023 at the UN Water Conference, and we like to follow that just to indicate why, and also why financially it's maybe a good decision to do. This is your life here. Huh? This, all of you, or almost all of you, are on the right-hand side. You started at 0, you started when you were 18 to university, you finished at 23, and you retired when you were 65 or 67 nowadays. In orange are the costs indicated there, and in green are the income. And you see that every euro that either your family or somebody else spent on your education, or maybe you did it yourself, you earned 3 euros back. So it's a wise investment that you did. It's not a lot of investments that will give you that return on investment. But even if you go a little bit further, you also have social benefits. Social benefits being that because you did your study, your health was better, you did not become a criminal. So there were some benefits there, and often that's expressed as a factor 10. So every euro already changed in 30 euros there. And then for the society, it's even more, because you had a better job, better income, tax income is bigger for the society or the country you're living in. So every euro invested in education translates into 300 euros worth for society. So why are we not investing more in education? I would be in favor of that. This global education network, I already spoke about. If you're interested, please approach me afterwards. I can tell you a little bit more about it. And the last thing I wanted to tell you is every 5 years we are organizing a capacity development symposium at IHE Delft. Next year we will have the 7th symposium taking place, so that's already for the last 35 years. What we try to do is we try to get some critical thinkers together about how and what do we need in capacity development. So it's not only about new teaching material, it's really about how to create more capacity and how can we do that together. And so this is my really last slide. So I do think that this framework, this ESSILA framework, can be used as a propeller to push forward this food energy nexus, where water is a very important part in there. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention.
So thank you, Eddie, for your excellent presentations. We will leave all the questions at the end. So now I would also like to invite the second speaker, Toshio Kirko, to give his presentation. Now the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Liu. I'm very happy to have this opportunity. I would start my talk with resilience and sustainability. In terms of the disaster losses, more than 80% of the human loss occurred in lower, middle, and low-income countries. For economic losses, more than 3/4 are in upper middle, the high-income countries. However, the economic losses relative to GDP are much higher in lower middle and low-income countries. The preamble to the 2030 agenda emphasized a sustainable and resilient path and leaving no one left behind. How to take a transformative step? How can science and technology play a key role? Climate change is making this challenge even harder. These two panels show the observed changes in heavy precipitation event and agriculture and ecosystem, ecological drought by IPCC. With regard to the climate projection, the annual maximum daily precipitation will increase on almost all continents. The lower chart shows the the brown color shows the increase in soil moisture drought. So we will have much more severe hydroclimatological extremes, flood and drought. The water cycle itself is one of the key components of the climate system. And we have been making effort to use the water efficiently and reduce the water-related disaster. Under this framework, a lot of the socio-economical, environmental, and the cultural activities, including food and energy security, and the ecosystem urban management, and improvement of quality of life. These are closely related to the poverty. We are now facing a climate change, regime shift, and extremes. How to address these the issues holistically? We need to make coordinated and integrated effort to work together across the discipline and the sectors. And then we can mitigate and adapt to the change and we can take a transformative step, a sustainable and resilient path. Among the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, these goals, the health, education work, represent the quality of life component, which is directly supported by water, food, energy nexus component. And natural environment and artificial environment closely linked to the quality of life and water, food, energy nexus component. And all of the goals and component closely related to the social system component. Water-related disaster intensified by climate change affect serious damage in these goals and components directly, but the damage expand to the water, food, energy nexus component, the quality of life component. And once the society falls into such a critical situation, social system component, the poverty, gender, inequality, and the peace, we have a lot of the problem to a great degree. How should humanity survive such a risks and live with them in a sustainable way? We need to address this interlinkage and also address these issues holistically. We need to enhance the cross-sectoral decision-making. And then we can improve the human security and achieve the quality growth. Water, food, energy nexus component, affected by water-related disaster and climate change, should play a key role in this framework. I would introduce a more scientific and technical aspect of this water, food, energy nexus component. So in the global data and the global model output after downscaling and bias correction can be used as a hydrological modeling system to project the extreme event and flood and drought and climate change-induced regime shift. These output should be interpreted environmental, socio-economical, and cultural and historical aspect of society. And then this will enable a holistic impact assessment of the climate change. Based on this assessment, we can provide the option list of the countermeasure for mitigation adaptation. Once decisions are made, the countermeasure should be implemented, and the result of the monitoring and evaluation should be reflected in the next stage of the decision-making. It is very important to incorporate uncertainty, quantified uncertainty of the climate projection into the decision-making process. So meteorological, hydrological observation, modeling, and prediction should be linked with a social benefited area to support cross-sectoral decision-making. To support this framework, we need to develop the integrated hydrological modeling system connected with not only the water but also the sediment for the disaster and environment. And by using the surface energy and water flux, this is also very key specialty of the Professor Eddie Moore I have just heard. So this system, the surface component, can be connected with global atmospheric monitoring data and the weather and season, weather prediction, seasonal prediction, the climate projection model output. And this surface water and energy flux system and this system can cover the drought, normal, and flood situation seamlessly. This surface system is can be connected with snow and glacier models. And by combining surface system, subsurface soil moisture system, we can connect the crop production and rice production modeling system. And by using the river flow system, we can connect the dam module, which has a function of the hydropower irrigation, flood and drought management. So in this way, water food energy nexus monitoring and prediction can contribute to the food and energy security and water-related disaster risk reduction. So how to realize we are applying this system to various regions and countries in the world. This is the case of Indonesia. In collaboration with the government of Indonesia, we applied this system to the Soro River on the island of the Java. By applying the dynamical downscaling to the climate model, we can get the monthly rainfall increase in rainy season, a decrease in dry season. And heavy rainfall will increase by the factor 1.2. And this is upper part of the rank order discharge, so around flood peak. So this value will increase about 20%. So that's why the duration and area and also depth of the flood and the inundation will increase. With regard to the monthly discharge, increase in the rainy season, but a decrease in the dry season. And the more important parameter, root zone soil moisture, which is very important for agricultural production, will decrease in the dry season. There is a dam in this basin, and inflow into the reservoir will increase. And the fulfillment rate of the reservoir will increase from 80% to the 90%. This is a very good signal. We can expand the irrigated area. The economic impact of this increase in the irrigation area is really big positive. This is a very good signal. But at the same time, the agricultural production in dry season decreased dramatically by half. How to adapt this change? The increase of the fertilizer is not effectively. We need to change the variety, and then we can recover this decrease rate. In this way, we can find a solution in the context of the local situation. By using the globally available data, we can develop the hydrological model. And by inputting the ensemble rainfall prediction with identified the quantified uncertainty into this hydrological model, we can get the ensemble inflow prediction into the reservoir. By coupling with dam module, we can optimize the hydropower generation and reduce the downstream flood situation by controlling dam release. So we applied this system to an electric dam, the electric power dam, in collaboration with an electric company in Japan. This is a case in 2018. Very big flood happened. The initial this reservoir, this dam, is identify the safety release level to protect the downstream. That is 600 cubic meter per second. Before this flood event, the reservoir was almost full. So then this system suggests a pre-release and then keep the capacity for flood control. And the flood inflow is stored effectively and reduce the flood peak to the remain below the safety level and recover the water level after the event. This system is working every day, every moment. And during the warm season this year, we can increase the power generation by 12.7%. Next year, this very serious flood also happened. And in this case, there's enough capacity in the reservoir. So without any pre-release, the flood water can be stored very effectively and reduce the flood peak and recover the water level. In this case, the 3.7% increase in the power generation. So in this way, we can contribute, the science and technology community can contribute to this framework. But how can we share the information and the knowledge with society? So we need to promote the knowledge integration and also provide capacity building education, as Professor Eddie Moore emphasized. So then we can establish that kind of activity. However, science community is struggling to develop the integrated knowledge because there is a big challenge on the data and the information. And also the prediction, simulation, as well as visualization, data integration, information fusion among the different disciplines. So we need under the situation, it is very difficult for the science community to work together beyond the discipline and sectors. So we need some function of the online synthesis. So then we can, by getting this kind of support, science community can integrate the knowledge. Furthermore, we have a big gap between science community and society. We need to have a facilitator who is not just a master of ceremony, but as a catalytic being who can provide professional advice based on a wide range of scientific and indigenous knowledge in the context of the local situation. By the online system synthesis, system, the support, the facilitator can work together with science community and society to bridge the gap. And then the society can provide user needs, local data, and indigenous knowledge to the science community. Science community can create a new framework through the online synthesis function. The fresh learning opportunity can be shared with society. Science Council of Japan, recommended this framework. And based on this framework, we need to emphasize online synthesis capacity and facilitator training. Through this function, we can take an end-to-end approach and integrate the cutting-edge science in decision-making and encourage local action. But it is very difficult to establish and promote and realize this framework by only an institute. So that's why under the framework of the IHP, Intergovernmental Hydrological Program, Phase 9, which has introduced Professor Eddie Moore, the several UNESCO Category 2 centers are working together. Institute for Water Education, Delft, Netherlands, led by Professor Eddie Moore, and the International Center for Water Resources and Global Change in Koblenz, Germany, focusing on data, and Center for Water Law, Policy and Science in Dundee, the United Kingdom, focusing on the governance, and the International Center for Integrated Water Resources Management in the USA, focusing on IWRM, and my institute, ICHAM, focusing on the system development. We are working together and working in partnership with Africa. So as Professor Eddie Moore introduced, last year we had a UN 2023 Water Conference in New York. Professor Liam, Minister of the Water Resources and Irrigation of Egypt, he used to be a leader of the UNESCO chair in Europe. And Ms. Kamikawa, the special envoy of Prime Minister of Japan, co-chaired the interactive dialogue on water for climate resilience and environment. They clearly identified a future direction by saying the key for the breakthrough is the open science policy, facilitation between science and decision making, end-to-end approach, and water cycle integration. To take a transformative step, sustainable and resilient path, we need to make a coordinated and integrated effort to work together across the discipline and sectors. A part of the contribution of science and technology community, water, food, energy nexus monitoring and prediction, online synthesis, facilitation should be emphasized. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Toshio, for the excellent presentation. And I will give my talk before we have the discussion. Let's move. Okay, first of all, I would like to give a very brief introduction about my university. My university was established in 1951, and it is probably the largest university in terms of the number of undergraduate students. So each year we have about 10,000 undergraduate students coming to our university, and we have about 40,000 students in campus. And the university is co-sponsored by the Ministry of Water Resources and Henan Province. And we have a lot of excellent alumni, including 3 Ministers of Water Resources. So in fact, in China, in the past 17 years, all the ministers, they got their training in my university, including the current Minister of Water Resources. And we also have another very famous alumni called Cixin Liu. He is famous for his science fiction movie, the novel called The Three-Body Problem. So it's a very famous science fiction movie. So now we talk about the water, food, energy. As I mentioned, they are linked to each other. But all these topics, they are very important. If we look at water, energy, food individually, like for the water security, currently about 50% of the world population experience severe water scarcity. And about 2.2 billion people still live without access to safely manage the drinking water. So the water issue is very big for many regions. And then when we talk about the food security, currently there are about 800 million people suffering from chronic hunger. And 281 million people in last year faced a high level of accurate food insecurity. And then when we think about the energy security, currently about 750 million people do not have access to electricity, and this number will increase to about 2.2 billion in 2030. And certainly there is a big discussion about climate change and about the carbon security. So we are living in a world with change, particularly for climate change. Climate change can influence the hydrological cycle seriously. Based on a very recent study published in Science this year from my team, we found that about 20% of the hydro stations, they have significant changes in seasonal flow distributions. And particularly for the regions in the northern part, the northern high latitude, there is a weakening trend of river flow seasonality, and this trend is closely linked to human-induced climate change. It's very obvious. And also many regions, they are suffering from water scarcity. And there is another very interesting trend, because if we look at the future, in Africa, there will be more and more regions with water scarcity after the year 2050. And in China, we have very serious water scarcity now. But in the future, after 2050, the water scarcity will become less serious. So there are very different trends for different regions for the water scarcity situation. And certainly climate change, human activities will also influence the global hydrological cycle, including the groundwater flows. And we found there are a lot of changes for groundwater fluxes and storage all over the world. And this was also published in Science this year for the impacts of global change on groundwater fluxes and storage. So if we look at the future, particularly if we look at the future in 2050, we will have very big challenges because we will have more and more people. We will have about 10 billion people. So we have to provide food for the people, we have to provide water for the people, and we have to provide energy for the people. And we need 60% more food, 55% more water, and 80% more energy for an increasing amount of population in the year 2050. So this will become a very big challenge. And then we all talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. And there are specific goals for water, for food, for energy, for climate, for ecosystem, and for partnership, etc. And certainly water is always a very big issue. If you look at the water is linked to different components of SDGs. As talked about Toshio, so water is linked to food, water, to energy, to climate change, to everything. So the global water security is a shining star in the dark sky of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And then talk about the nexus. So the first is the water-food nexus, because we need water to produce our food. And 70% of the water use is for agriculture. So if we look at our food consumption, I give an example for China. So here I show the per capita water footprint. So that means how much water is needed to support the human consumption for China, for the food consumption. So you can see that there is an increasing trend of per capita water footprint. And the main reason is, in the past, we have we have a trend to consume more meat and less cereals. So the change in food consumption patterns are the main cause of the increasing water footprint and also the main cause for the worsening water scarcity in China. So there is an increasing per capita water footprint in China. But if we compare the Chinese water footprint with many other countries, we found that our water footprint is still low. So our water footprint, the per capita water footprint, I mean for each person, it's lower than the developed countries. It's much lower than US. So if we follow the consumption trend of USA or the European people, then the per capita water consumption will increase, and the total amount of water consumption will further increase. So that means we have to take care of our food consumption. We have to think about the diet change when we think about the water footprint. And there is also a waste of food. And quite often we eat food, we do not eat all, and we throw away the food. So this is the food losses and waste. And based on scientific calculation, we found that about 20% grains was lost and wasted in the supply chain from the field to the fork in China. If we calculate this food waste into the water footprint, it's equivalent to the total water footprint of Canada, or if we calculate this into the arable land, it's equivalent to the arable area of Mexico. So we also need to think about our food losses and waste. And recently, we also calculate the food waste and its environmental impacts, including the land footprint, the water footprint, carbon footprint, nitrogen footprint, phosphorus footprint. So one conclusion is, if we want to take care of our resources efficiency in the future, we need to think to cut our food losses and waste. So there are a lot of news about about cutting food losses and waste. I like this news. It's called "Cutting Our Losses: Learning from Food Waste in China." Why? Because, as I mentioned, in China, the food loss rate is about 20%. This is very low compared to many other countries, like compared to UK, US. The food loss rate can reach 40% to 60%. So our food loss rate is really very low because the Chinese people take care of the food very well. And then here there is a news called we need to learn from the food waste in China to taking care of the food losses and the waste. So in the past, we worked together with many scholars, try to persuade the people to take care of the food waste. And luckily, this was written into the SDG, the goal 12, called the Ensuring Sustainable Consumption and Production Patterns. There is a specific goal called half per capita global food waste at the retail and consumer levels and reduce food losses. And also in China, the government spent a lot of effort to cut the food losses. So the Chinese lawmakers voted to adopt an anti-food waste law at the session of the National People's Congress Standing Committee in 2022. The law aimed at safeguarding the country's food security. So now everywhere, if you go to the restaurant in China, you always see a note, try to save water and try to reduce the amount of food waste. I think this is good. And certainly we need energy from coals, we need energy from hydropower, and we also have a large water footprint. Like in China, 75% of China's electricity is from the coal-fired power plants. And it's expected that in the future, the installed capacity of coal-fired power plants will increase continuously. And then we check the location of the hydropower stations with the water scarcity situation. And we found that 75% of the water consumption for the coal-fired power plants was from regions with absolute or chronic water scarcity. So this means for many coal-fired power plants, they are located in the water scarce region. So in the future, when we think about producing energy, we have to think about how to preserve our water resources, how to reduce the water footprint of the coal-fired power plants. And we also compare the water footprint of different energy carriers. Here we show, like for the biomass, for the coal, for the natural gases, and also for hydropower. And there is a very interesting finding that the low-carbon energy carrier, they often have a higher water footprint compared to the coal and natural gases. So this means, like in the future, we want to take care of the climate change. We want to reduce our carbon footprint. So there is a specific aim to reduce, you see the red curve, to reduce the carbon footprint. But to achieve this, we need low carbon energy. And then the water footprint, the black one, the water footprint will increase because we want to reduce our carbon footprint. So that's interesting. And based on the very recent IPCC report, the working group 2, we found that the water security is important, critical for meeting SDGs and climate resilient development. Yet, many mitigation measures have high water footprint, which can compromise SDGs and adaptation outcomes. So that means many scientists, we talk a lot about the carbon footprint. We talk a lot about the climate change. We try to reduce our carbon footprint, but this is often at the cost of increasing our water footprint. Then how to do in the future? So I also talked this slide a moment ago to show the interlinkages between water, energy, and food at the beginning of this side event. So we think about the nexus, water, energy, food nexus. There are still a lot of scientific challenges. For example, Eddie also mentioned the data sharing. So it's difficult to get water for individual, like for water, for food, for energy. And certainly it's more challenging to get required data for all these components, water, energy, food. So also it's difficult to share data, information, and knowledge. So in the future, we need to fill in this gap. And we also need to develop tools to study water, energy, food nexus. I think Toshio gave a very good presentation about the tools developed by collaborating with a lot of organizations for the water, energy, food nexus study. So in the future, we need such integrated software platform and tools to support our research and to support our education and also to support the sustainable development goals. And now currently we are working on a project for water, energy, food nexus for the Mekong River Basin by collaborating with scientists from different continents. And this project was supported by the National Natural Science Foundation of China and also supported by UNEP. So our scientists from different countries, we are working to think about the climate change, water resources, what energy food nexus for the Mekong River Basin. And here we also need to collect a lot of data, development tools, including hydrological models, and also the food simulation models. So here we found that the rice production is heavily influenced by climate change in the future. So climate change may decrease the rice production in the future. And for this reason, because of the increasing population, there is an increasing demand for energy, and the water demand will also increase. So here we think water, food, energy security is a key for sustainable development for the Mekong River Basin, and we need to collaborate among different countries within this river basin. So where to go? And in the future, what should we do? So I think first we need to say goodbye to solo. Solo means we work with ourselves. We need to say goodbye to this. We need to have a Nexus approach. There is a need to shift knowledge generation from the tree model to a web model, and also to work together to foster the interdisciplinarity and system analysis. And I also talk about the water scarcity. Previously, when we think about the water scarcity, we always think about the quantity of water, whether we have sufficient water to support our population. But pollution can reduce the availability of clean water. So we have to think about the pollution-induced water scarcity, or we can call it the quality-induced water scarcity. And at the same time, I think there is another more important issue. When we think about the water scarcity, we always think about human. We always think whether we human can have sufficient clean water. But we do not care so much about the ecosystems. We do not care so much about the nature. So the nature cannot speak. But if we use too much water, and then the nature can really give us bad lessons, like the flood or ecological degradation, a lot of disasters. So in the future, when we think about the water scarcity, we also think we need to think about the water scarcity for nature, the water scarcity for ecosystems. We call it the ecological water scarcity. So in the future, we should not only think about our human beings, we also need to pay more attention to the nature. And thirdly, we should not only think about the water. We need to think about the sustainable development goals, the main resources, the water, energy, food, ecosystem. We need to think about the impacts of climate change, impacts of human activities. So the water, energy, food nexus for sustainable development. So the water nexus. And also in the future, we also need to think about the institute nexus. We should not only work alone with the people within our institute. We need to collaborate with more people from the Netherlands, from Japan, from Hungary, and from Africa, from many regions. There is an interesting study I introduced. Like Africa will have a lot of regions with water scarcity, but for these regions, they never have such a problem before. They do not know how to deal with that. And like in China in the past 50 years, and one emphasis of the government is to deal with the water scarcity. We have gained a lot of knowledge. So in the future, we need to work together with the African people to think about how to work together to tackle the water scarcity problem. And there is another very interesting story. 3 weeks ago, a governor from Kazakhstan visited our university. So he mentioned they had a very serious flood in April this year. They never had such a disaster before, because we know it's in the very dry region. The problem is water scarcity, is the drought. They never had the flood issue, but this year they had very serious flood. So they don't know how to deal with that. More than 100,000 people, they have to leave to another region because of the flood. So we also need the institution Nexus. We also need to work together to tackle such an unexpected problem in the future. So we need to work with a lot of organizations in the future. So I think in the future, we need some international big science initiative, like the Earth Water Future. So for such big science, we have our scientists work on the scientific problem. We also have engineers to solve the real problem and to find solutions. We need the educational program like from HE to train the people for the capacity building. We also need to communicate with policymakers to have good policies, to have technologies to deal with the water problem and to think about the sustainable development. So I think this cannot be done within an institute. This cannot be done within one major. We have to work together for such a big issue, the big issue of water and the big issue of sustainable development. So I think such a big science initiative is very important. And so that's all for my presentation. I hope in the future we can collaborate more and we work on the water, energy, food nexus, but this is not the most important. The most important is to work together for a sustainable future, for a sustainable Earth. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. So now next, I would like to invite our two speakers to come to the floor, and we may have a few questions from our audience. Be seated, please. So this afternoon, we had three speakers talking about the water, energy, food nexus. Any questions for the, yeah, please.
Okay. I'm Shaibi from National Research Center from Tunisia. I really appreciate the quality of the presentation. I have really learned a lot, so it's very, very interesting. And I have just two questions. So the first one is, I'm wondering if there is any indicators or metrics to measure the success of the WEF Nexus. So when we are talking, when talking WEF, it's very complex as it has been presented, and it's very interdisciplinary also fields. So to measure the success of using the WEF, how we can really make it. The other one, my second question is about the innovations of the WEF technology. I'm talking about technology when it comes to be used in the vulnerable places, especially in community where they have no access to the high technology. Because we have really we know some technologies that needs really high-tech technologies, and in using them, especially in this community, it will be a bit difficult. So either for the capacity, they don't have this capacity, or they don't have knowledge about these aspects, because we have also experience in our country about using, for example, in the WEF Nexus, when it comes to using the solar energy for pumping. So it's good, so we can really we can have a green energy using solar energy. But from the other side, they are overexploiting the water. So there is overexploitation of the water because the priority for the users are really to save energy. So saving energy independent of the over-exploiting of the water, because the people, they don't know about this link between the water and energy, and also, as you have mentioned, the ecosystem, which is a disaster, because now we see in our country there is some disaster in some places where they're using solar energy, which is good, but independence of the water resource, which is very, very limited. So I think that's the main issue that I want really to see your point of view. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your questions. Adim, would you like to give some answers?
Yes, I think you're posing a very difficult question. And I think that if you're looking to answer your first question, if you would like to see how successful water energy food nexus is, I think on an academic way you can do that, because I think using models you can get an answer there. But I think that's not only for the water energy food nexus, but I also see that, for example, for nature-based solutions, it's difficult actually to get real data to see how it works. And I think already the definition of the problem and getting boundaries there to really know if it has a positive effect, I think that's a really difficult one to do. With that, I would also like to encourage people actually to put more emphasis on when a project is implemented somewhere. And I'm not talking about a research project, I'm talking really about the implementation of a project somewhere. That there is also an effort being done to monitor the impact. Because I think as a society we still have to learn a lot. And again, also this monitoring is not so easy, because if you talk about water, energy, food nexus, you already know that you have 3 components that you need to monitor, which is already a challenge. But I think that's something that we really need to get a better impression on what can be done. Maybe slightly related to your second question, I do think that the water energy food nexus, also using it in a way of models and actually calculating scenarios, it can help to better understand what the impact is if you put emphasis or the use of one way of water or energy on the other components. And there I see a big beneficiary of models, also like Professor Toshi also indicated. I think that those models can help, also on a global scale. But I also know that on a more local scale, you also have other models that can help. I even think that you not always need, say, numerical models for that. I think you can also use conceptual models to do the thinking. And sometimes conceptual models are a better tool to communicate with local stakeholders, because it's easy to understand, but even more important for that, to trust what comes out. So that would be my advice, acknowledging that it's not an easy question that you posed.
So would you like to add?
2 questions are very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And as Eddie replied to the first question, I have a very similar aspect. As I mentioned, success criteria will be decided by the people in the area, not the external, the value of sense, but internal value of sense is very important. So as I mentioned, that's why we need a facilitator, not just the scientific approach, but to understand the local situation, and also encourage the people and identify the goal by themselves. And then the scientific knowledge could be added and realize the value. So to measure the success story, it's very difficult to say, but through the process itself is a kind of the measure of the success story. And second point, I introduced the power generation efficiency increase and flood risk reduction, the simultaneous system based on the quantify the uncertainty of the rainfall prediction. So such an optimization system I developed around the 2010 to 2011, and I introduced the system to my government. But nothing happened at the time. But in 2018, very serious flood happened in Japan. And the Cabinet Office Secretary led the discussion. Hydropower dam, irrigation dam, please cooperate to reduce the flood damage by the political leadership. And then my system can be used in Japan and also the other country. So I think innovation itself, scientific and technological innovation is not enough to collaborate with policy leaders and then the socialized and realized in the society, then innovation could be appeared. So I think that is my feeling. So we don't have any standalone innovation, but only by the science and technology. But corporate or socialized such a science and technology and then some innovation could be realized.
Okay, thank you, Adia and Toshio, to share some opinions about the answers to your questions. I think the questions are really difficult. They both give some answers also for the first question. I would like to add one comment for the second question. I think it's a very, very interesting, very important question for the water innovation. And in the past few years, for our university, we collaborate with the many companies and also with the government to develop, we call it the intelligent irrigation system. So there are two components. One is about the irrigation technology. For example, we develop specific drip irrigation, and this can reduce amount of water use for crops. And another component is the platform. So we have the monitoring system by integrating a lot of sensors and also using remote sensing and the traditional monitoring system to monitor like the climate system, the rainfall, temperature, etc. And also we monitor the moisture, the soil moisture. So we can judge the soil moisture condition for crops. And we use such intelligent irrigation system to a pilot area. It's a huge pilot area. It's about 10,000 hectares. And we use in the pilot area. And because of this, we can judge at what time we should irrigate and how much we should irrigate. And at the same time, we not only irrigate the crops, we also use fertilizers, so we can have the accurate assessment of how much fertilizer we should apply and how much at what time. So because of this system, we can significantly reduce the amount of water use by 20%. And we can reduce the fertilizer use by about 25%. So this can reduce the pollution. And also, we can increase the crop production about 10 to 15%. So you can see because of the innovation of the technology, we can increase the food consumption, reduce amount of water use, they reduce the amount of fertilizer. At the same time, we think we take care of the carbon cycle. So I think this is a good example for the innovation of technology to help the water, energy, food nexus. And we are expanding the application in different regions in China now. So yeah, thank you for your excellent questions. Yeah, okay, sure.
Thank you very much. My name is Ioan Jelev. I am the Vice President of the Academy of Agriculture and Forestry Sciences from Romania. Congratulations, it was very excellent presentation, all the three, very impressive. And I have two questions and maybe a small comments. The first question is, if in the efficiency of the irrigation systems, it was taken account also the aridity index of the atmosphere, because sometimes we can ensure water by irrigation, but due to a very high aridity index of atmosphere, the plants are not growing. And if this phenomena was analyzed, saying in Romania, for example, we have such problems, we can sometimes ensure enough water by irrigation, but due to the very high aridity of the atmosphere, the plants are not growing well. This is one question. The second one is, in the relation about you speak about these three components of the water, quantity, quality, and biodiversity. If you take in account some models like the eco-hydrological models, because as I know, UNESCO created a working group to promote knowledge, bringing together the knowledges from hydrology and ecology, and to create a kind of integrated eco-hydrological models under the coordination of Professor Zalewski in Poland. And the third one, it's only a comment. I was in 2002 in Johannesburg World Summit for Sustainable Development when this WEHAP was promoted. That means the 5 priorities, so water, energy, health, energy, agriculture, and biodiversity. And in this 3-model approach, I see that it's a lack of the component of health and maybe of biodiversity, or at least not was very strongly underlined. Maybe this can be in future 2 components, this can be taken account, saying this health, sure, in relation with social aspects, maybe this deal also with health, but this is a small question because this is 5 priorities we have, and now I see only the 3 from them. Yes, thank you very much.
Now maybe if I can pick up on the last remark, so thank you very much for that. I fully agree that I think it's also very important to have both health but also environment actually as components. I do think that the water, energy, food nexus is an important one because, as was shown by Professor Rieu, it's a very global assessment. But if you start looking at a more direct, smaller scale, then you also have to take those other components into place. During lunchtime, I had the nice occasion to talk with somebody who's working on actually improving seeds, especially for beans in Africa. Also because the idea behind it is to improve nutrition through health. So also through the food system, health is an important one. And of course, health at the cause of vector diseases is another one that plays a role in there. So I think you can't look at them independently. But I also think that it's already quite complex. So I think at the general level, you have to try to keep it a little bit simple, although it's already complex. But if you go to a region, I think what Professor Toshio also mentioned is that taking into account the communities that are living there is another, and the cultural background is another important part next to health and environment. So it becomes more and more complex, and depending on the situation, you have to enter those different components in there. I'm very happy to pass on the question, on your question on aridity to one of the other speakers there, because that is not my personal knowledge there. Would be quite interested to hear the answer.
Oh, yeah, please. Okay.
Okay, the first question, aridity, the system which I introduced, we can consider the atmospheric aridity or dryness, and also the interaction with soil surface and subsurface soil moisture. This dynamics could be simulated. And with regard to the seasonal forecast and weather forecast in the weekly forecast, the seasonal forecast, the 3 months forecast. So heavy rainfall, the prediction accuracy of the weather forecast is increased very much good level. And dryness of the prediction, seasonal prediction also could be used. But the heavy rainfall prediction at the seasonal scale cannot be used at this moment. So my point is the drought prediction by seasonal model, the possibility is now improved. So, and by connecting with soil surface and subsurface the model, we will be able to get better information of the dry region, the agriculture. And the second question is our system is based on the eco-hydrological simple biosphere model. So that's why the dynamic vegetation is included in the system. So that's why the ecological, not only the crop and rice, but also the ecological condition could be also simulated. What is most important? What is important point for addressing that system is a downscaling. The global model or the climate model is spatial resolution is several tens kilometers, but our target land surface is 1 kilometer or 500 meters. So how to downscale from the global model to the local scale? That is very important to get the usable information for management of the land surface. And the last point, the health and the biodiversity, is very important. That's why I want to develop the coordinated group with health, education. They are very, very important. And with regard to the biodiversity, IPCC for climate change and IPBES for the biodiversity are now working together. And 3 years ago, one very integrated report was published by through the corporation. I think that is a very good step. That is my comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I can add also some ideas. So for the first question, you talk about the aridity. In fact, it's related to drought. There are 3 types of drought called the atmospheric drought, hydrological drought, and also agricultural drought. So recently there are some research studies to use remote sensing to study the atmospheric drought and the hydrological drought. It's interesting because normally it will take about 1 week to 4 weeks to change from the atmospheric drought to hydrological drought. And if we combine computer models or AI techniques, we can project the future hydrological drought based on the atmospheric drought. But there are still very few studies to link the atmospheric drought to the agricultural drought. But agricultural drought is very important for food production. So I think there are still a lot of research we need to do to think about the agricultural drought and the projections. So this is the first question. And the second question, you mentioned the ecohydrological model. This is very important. In fact, globally, there are increasing amount of studies on ecohydrology. And in China, it's the same situation. I was involved in a large project supported by the National Science Foundation of China. And about 1,000 scientists they are involved, including the young scientists working on eco-hydrological models to support the sustainable development. And we use a specific river basin in the northwestern part of China called the Hehe River Basin. It's the second largest inland river basin in China. So many scientists work together to develop to increase our understanding of the eco-hydrological processes and to develop eco-hydrological models and to support the sustainable development goal at the river basin level. So I think I agree with you. This is a very important area to study. And you also talk about the different types of water scarcity. I call this the three-dimensional water scarcity assessment to think about the quantity, quality, and ecological water scarcity, the three-dimensional. So for the tools we have developed, many can be used to study the quantity-induced water scarcity. Some can be used for the quality or pollution-induced water scarcity. But we certainly need more tools, the integrated tools for the three-dimensional water scarcity assessment. So this is the second question. The third question, I agree with you that biodiversity is a very important topic. Health certainly is a very important topic. I would like to mention that there is a big global initiative called ACMIP. So for the ACMIP program, it's a collaborative effort from thousands of scientists from all over the world to develop different models, including water models, food models, energy models, health models, biodiversity models, ecosystem models. So there are different types of, I remember there are 17 to maybe more than 20 sectors, including the social sectors. So there are different types of models. They can assess the individual topics like health and biodiversity. They can also be used to study the interlinkages among different sectors. So this is a program you can check called ACMIP. It's led by PIC in Germany. And also for the biodiversity, I mentioned the paper recently published in Science, the river flow seasonality. And in fact, this is closely linked to biodiversity. And some team members of mine, there is a young PhD student. She's working on the impacts of this kind of river flow seasonality on biodiversity by looking at more than 1,000 species. How about the species they are influenced by such flow changes? So certainly I think the linkage between rivers and the biodiversity is very important. And talking about the health is definitely important. In the future, we should think about the planetary health, not only the health of human beings, but the health of animals and the health of our ecosystem. So the integrated health is called One Health or planetary health. very interesting. Just before I came here, 2 days ago, we launched a program called the China-US Collaborative Project on planetary health. So there is a common interest between the Chinese scientists and the scientists from USA. It's supported by the Chinese Academy of Science and the National Academy of Science in the US. So we are working together for the study on planetary health. And certainly I think the health issue is definitely a very important topic. So that's the answers. I think there is another question.
Thank you to the presentation for your insightful presentation. So I'm Jihae and I'm from Science and Technology Policy Institute. It's a national think tank in South Korea. And my team is currently collaborating with United Nations Development Program on a triangular cooperation project, which is focused on sustainable development in the Mekong River Basin, utilizing the water energy food nexus approach. So this is an ODA project with the pilot initiatives being implemented in Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. So for example, we are developing a natural disaster forecasting system in Laos and implementing like clean water purification solutions in Cambodia. So in our work, we are considering various factors such as defining project outcome indicators, ensuring sustainability, and organizing training workshops for local stakeholders. So I'd like to ask which aspect should take priority for long-term success. So financial support, it can be financial support like capacity building or another factor. I'd like to ask, how do you think about that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to share some ideas?
No, I think a part of the answer is already in what you said. I think engaging with the stakeholders as soon as possible is the most important step that you can take. And then depending a little bit on the situation, also the other parts will follow. But there is also the governance part that I think is an important one, but I think that will come to the table if you engage the right stakeholders in what you're planning to do. But of course, financing is sometimes another struggle, but talking to a lot of investment banks, I think financially there's often a solution if there is also willingness. So I don't see that as the major obstacle, but I think the stakeholder engagement and the governance side are, I think, 2 very important parts in a project like you're describing.
I fully agree with the AD. The stakeholder engagement is most important. In our case, we established a platform by inviting the representative of the key ministry and department for river works and weather bureau, agricultural sector, irrigation, and disaster management. So through the coordination among the stakeholder, the various stakeholders, and then they can identify their goal in collaboration with us, and so in such way, the stakeholder engagement is really important, I think.
Okay, thank you for the question. Very interesting. For the Mekong River Basin, I think there are many priority areas for research. For example, for irrigation, and I visited the downstream Mekong River Basin many times, and I even went to the farm area, many farm area, and then I asked the local farmers what do they need the most. They always tell me that they need to expand their irrigation systems, the infrastructure, because they think there is, well, they don't talk about climate change, but they told me the drought happened more and more often. So they urgently need more irrigation infrastructure so that they can guarantee the food security. So I think the infrastructure is an important issue. And another emerging issue is the pollution or the ecological restoration. Due to the economic development, in fact, for the Southeast, many regions are developing very fast. So there are more and more pollutions now, and there are some ecosystems that are degraded. So for the ecological restoration is an emerging issue, emerging topic. The third one is about the ecosystem assessment, because for the local farmers, they want to have more food, so they need more arable land. They started to change the forest in the high mountains into arable land. And with the remote sensing, it can be seen that the top mountains, the farmers, they just change the forest into arable land. So to provide some ecosystem assessment is important. Very recently, UNEP will release a report on ecosystem assessment for the Mekong River Basin, particularly for Cambodia, very soon. And the last issue I want to mention is the education. And because we try to organize a lot of training programs, capacity building programs, and we found the education is still not good there. And in the future, if the local people, because the economy is developing very fast, they need higher education to support the social and economic development. So I think the local, it's difficult to find a lot of people with PhD degree in like Cambodia, in Laos. Not so many people. So I think in the future, to really work on the educational program is important for the Mekong River Basin, and thirdly, we can work together for such issues. So I think it's really a very good dialogue, and there are quite a lot of questions. Maybe there are still remaining questions, but we have very limited time. So I want to just concluding this talk. Maybe we can give a very brief concluding. I think this is a very interesting side event. And Eddie, Toshio, and me, we talk about the water, energy, food nexus, and in the framework of sustainable development. But I think the key is that in the future, we need more collaboration. We need more collaboration for research, for education, for capacity building, and also to support the local, not only at the global level, but to support the local societal development. So I also look forward to our really interesting collaboration in the future. And there is a next program, and because for IHE Delft is a very good institute for education and capacity building. And I'm very happy to tell you that I got my master degree from IHE Delft. That was, I studied at IHE Delft from 2000 to 2002. And I really benefited a lot from IHE. Now I'm a president of North China University of Water Resources and Electric Power. And in the future, we hope we can have more collaboration. We will have more educational program, training program, capacity building. So I hope in the future we can have more collaborations. To do that, we will sign a MOU between me and well, you can sit here, and Eddie. So can you bring the red one? So we will sign. bring the book here for the signature. So we will sign a MOU with all your support.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for witnessing this as well. It's something that we were looking forward to for a long time, since 2002 actually, when he graduated there. I do hope that this is also an example of, I think, if I may speak about all the three of us, we really think that this collaboration is needed, and I think it should not only remain to the three institutions that we're sitting here, but I hope that we can also extend that to all other organizations. So very much looking forward also to meeting you and sharing with you, I think, the efforts that we think are so much needed for the water sector and the globe in general. So I would like to thank Professor very much for organizing this, and I'm really looking forward actually to the next step there. Thank you.
Thank you. So I mentioned the 340 program, and I brought the English version. So one is for ID,
Thank you.
and another is for culture. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I also want to thank all the participants for this site event. It was organized very well with your support, and I also look forward for our fruitful collaboration. I hope you will enjoy the World Science Forum. Thank you, and see you around. Thank you.